As kids, me and my friends were prone to letting our imagination run freely. What we saw is what it was, what it became. We weren't a big group, but we had our fair share of fun. We liked to play around in my backyard, close to the tree line. Just beyond that line, there was an old tree. We called it the Hollow Tree. It didn't look like much. It wasn't very tall or very wide. It was a fair bit creepy though, I have to admit. We named it the Hollow Tree because it had a giant hole right dab in the center of it. It was reminiscent of a closed wound and seeped out a sticky red substance. We didn't think much of it at the time. Looking back, I wish I paid more attention to that little detail. Perhaps things could have been different. One day we were playing around the forest and decided to go towards the tree. Being close to it, I realized just how weird and out of place it truly was. Even as a kid, I realized something was very off about it. I was only 8 at the time. While my friends ran around and played tag and hide and seek in the forest, I was stuck in a trance, staring at this tree. It mesmerized me. I don't know how to describe it, but it's like it controlled my body. It seemed to beckon to me with waves of energy. I could only hear the sound of ringing in my ears as my vision was glued to it. Clearly, my friends didn't notice. Otherwise, they'd be curious. Just as quickly as I was stuck, I was released, and I no longer felt the berating ringing of my ears, and all sounds returned to normal. Snapping out of my trance, I ran over to join my friends, as if nothing happened. The tree still stood behind us, mysterious as always. The next day we went outside to play, and I started to hear loud screeches of insects. It was deafening. It was the harmonious sound of 1,000 cicadas all screaming in unison. Again, my friends didn't seem to be affected by it. You guys don't hear that? I screamed in pain. They all just looked at me like I was crazy. They agreed that they couldn't hear anything. I tried all I could to block out the noise, but it only seemed to get louder and louder as I got closer to the tree line. It has to be from that tree, I thought to myself. I walked towards the tree as best as I could. My legs trembled as my entire body struggled to move forward. Stunned by the loud screeching droned through my ears. As I approached the tree, the sounds became more intense. I stumbled and rested a hand on the tree. The noises stopped entirely. Only complete silence followed. Once more, I was left with more questions than answers. Where did those sounds even come from? There wasn't any bugs around, as far as I could tell. In fact, thinking upon it further, I realized there wasn't any wildlife near this tree. It was completely abandoned. I didn't really give it much thought before, but now, this fact stared me right in the face. Over the next few weeks, I studied the tree. I went outside at least once a day to go look at it. I was absolutely obsessed with it. I wanted to get to the bottom of whatever was going on around the tree. Every time I got close, I swore I could hear those insects again, seemingly more distant and less noticeable. After a month of observing the tree, I finally noticed something new. I walked up to it, and the roots started to move, seemingly reaching in my direction. Then the tree oozed out its red substance once more. I truly did not want to know what that liquid was. It trickled down the base of the tree as the roots appeared to soak it in. It was disgusting. I wanted to throw up. I gagged and ran away from the tree and back towards my house. I told my friends what happened and asked them to come look at the tree with me. They were reluctant, but joined me that night anyway. The moon was full. There were stars scattered throughout the cosmos, and the air was cool that evening. We journeyed down the path beyond the tree line and came up to the hollow tree. Billy inched towards the base of the tree and looked down to see the roots were moving, just as I told them it would. Oh my God, he wasn't kidding. Hey, Billy, I wouldn't. What happened next will stay with me for the rest of my days. The roots quickly took hold of Billy by the legs and pulled him towards the hole in the middle of the tree. Billy was screaming so loud I'm sure you could hear him from a mile away. He screamed and clawed at the ground as the tree dragged him in. I fell down in shock as the rest of our friends ran away, leaving Billy to his fate. I stayed and watched the whole thing. I wanted to help him, but I couldn't. My body froze in place from shock. As Billy's legs hit the hole in the tree, the hole widened just enough to squeeze him through horrifically. His bones snapped, and his blood spilled all over the tree as he was crushed and swallowed whole. His screams still heard far and wide. I got up and ran as fast as I could. I went to Mom and Dad crying and yelling. I told them what happened. They called the police and went out to check around the tree for Billy. They never found his body that night. Not even a trace of him. Nor did they find him any other night. Me and the rest of my friends never talked about that night again, and eventually we grew apart, carrying our dark secret with us. I never went back out to that forest again, but sometimes I could still hear Billy screaming in the dark. I could still hear the snapping of his bones and him choking on his own blood. My advice is this: if you go into the woods, watch where you step. And if you see an old tree with a giant hole in the middle of it, run.